Hi all, Joshua Steger here from ETFadviser.com.au, and today I'll do my usual weekly rundown of the Aussie ETF market and what investors should be looking at for the week ahead. I'm going to touch on three key themes today. I'm going to talk about Asia. I'm also going to look at AI, and that's really taken off again in the US. So I'm going to look at AI and a few ways to play that. And I'm also going to talk about defense. So obviously, the defense theme's been really strong and indications that it's looking to set up for another buy point. So we'll talk about that as well. So let's get started. I'll just start today with, so as part of the subscription service, I run a best ideas model portfolio for ETFs, and just touching base on the performance of this. So we started it on 1 June 2025, and we're making some good progress now. So we're up 9.2% so far. It should open up higher on Monday as well, and we're beating the ASX 200 at the moment. So early days, but we are making some progress, and we've got some, real tilts to some of the best ideas we've been talking about, and you probably gather what they may be if you've been following my weekly updates. So far, so good, and expecting another big week for the model portfolio. So as I said, as subscribers get access to the model portfolio and can see exactly what we hold. And as I said, I'm pretty excited for the expected performance over the next couple of weeks, just given some of the setups. So let's get into the markets. We'll start here with Asia, and it was a really big week in Asia. And if you have a look at Hong Kong, we had been talking about that it had been kind of struggling to get through this level, and finally last week it's pushed out. So we're now into a point, let's just have a look on the weekly chart, that it is kind of through that resistance. So I'll just try and shape it up a bit more, but it's kind of through this resistance. So you can see here on the chart, we're tackling this kind of weekly resistance back here. This is kind of back in say July 2022, trying to get through that, and it seems to have finally pushed through that. So obviously you got a really good week back-to-back buying, and it feels like the next point that it's going to get to is up here, and that's like another 5 to 7% depending on which index you're looking at. And the same thing for the China market as well. So if you have a look here at the China A50, you can see it also pushed out finally. So that's where you had the announcement of stimulus in China, and then it's had this big long base and pushed out kind of early August, settled back in, touched the 20-day moving average, and then even to finish the week, finished up strongly. So that's a really good sign. So we've got Hong Kong moving now through kind of that resistance. We've got China now moving out of that base. We've also got South Korea in play now as well. So you can access South Korea with the IKO ETF, and you can kind of see that's, had been a stellar performer just out of nowhere late. That was, let's just have a look. So that was late May, pretty much out of nowhere, but a really nice setup. It's just rallied straight up, and now it's formed this really nice base, and that pushed with the rest of Asia last week as well. So that's pretty exciting, and we were watching it, but just didn't expect it to go that quickly. And then we've got the other one in Japan as well. So the best to look at will be the Nikkei, and you can see that pushed out as well. So in Asia now you've got South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, China, all in play, all markets that you can access with ETFs. So it's really exciting times, and it feels like it's just getting started because they've kind of moved out of these points of weekly resistance. So you can see here on Japan, there's kind of your base, and it pushed out, settled back in. So this was kind of a secondary point to buy, and it's just had a really big week as well. So Asia, very exciting, and as you can imagine, that's a big part of the model portfolio. So pretty excited to have a good stake in Asia at the moment, and I think there's a lot more upside. So that's very exciting. So just in terms of the US, we'll touch base on that. So you can see, you've got new highs for the S&P, new highs for the NASDAQ. So all pretty strong. I mean, look at the NASDAQ, just back-to-back buying all week, or every day last week. So that's a really strong sign. And we had been talking about a correction, certainly looked like it a couple of times, but we've got some key levels that we're going to be watching for subscribers. So obviously the 50-day for NASDAQ, for example, will be quite crucial. But the exciting part is that the small caps are running as well. But we'll be watching this quite closely. Small caps, have a tendency to sometimes rally and then want to snap back. So this is where you'll get a point where the kind of weekly resistance comes in. So there's kind of a little bit more upside, but then at very least you want a bit of back and fill before perhaps another strong move later in the year. And that will then coincide with, the quite volatile times. Usually the second part of September and also October is just generally known as quite a volatile period. And often, you've had a lot of market corrections and volatility during that time historically. So that's something to keep in mind. But just in terms of topic 2, what has really kicked things off again is AI. And the big mover last week was actually Oracle. And you can see that reported, and Oracle's a massive company. So at this point, they've reported, and it's actually up. We'll just measure it. But it was actually, after earnings, was actually up 35%. So this is a multi-billion-dollar company, one of the biggest companies in the world. And at that stage, we put the founder and largest shareholder, Larry Ellison, into the richest person, valued the richest person in the world at that point when the Oracle stock rallied. But that just shows you, and this is, even though they missed some metrics, this was really on the back of the excitement around what their business is seeing in AI. So that again has kicked off that whole AI theme for the market again. And you can see, as an example, so this is a US stock. And there's a few different ways to play AI in Australia, and they're going to be our key ideas this week for subscribers. So I'm not going to outline them here, but I'm just going to show you an example. So this is an ETF in the US. This is Future AI and Tech ETF. And you can see that's actually a really nice base, and it's just set up, and it pushed out there the last few days, and is now just sitting at that point where, we'd want to, if it pushes out, I mean, it's certainly going to be a breakout, and that would be a point that you potentially want to buy. So we've got a few of those lined up for subscribers this week, but certainly AI back on the agenda, and that's really pushing the market at the moment as well. So related to AI, there's going to be a few other themes. There's going to be robotics, and we've actually finally seen Tesla start to have a move again. So Tesla, as most people know, their electric cars sales are really starting to slow. So what the exciting thing with Tesla is, they've got other parts of their business, and obviously the most exciting is kind of the AI and robotics side of things. So that's pushed on Thursday and Friday really strongly out of this really nice base. And you can kind of see there's your VCP pattern, and just set up perfectly, and then had a really good couple of days. So it had the first move out 6%, then followed by 7%. So for a massive company like Tesla, that's a huge move, basically 15%. So you can see that theme. So you've got AI, then that rolls onto robotics, and then that also rolls onto energy. And obviously the way, one of the ways to play that is with kind of the nuclear theme, and that's certainly what the tech companies in the US are looking to use to power all the demand for data centers and energy that will be required to power this kind of AI theme. And you can see, once again, we've got some key ideas for subscribers, but this is in the US, so this is a nuclear renaissance index ETF, and you can kind of see, there's the point of resistance, but it's just getting up to there now, and it's kind of setting up quite well. So maybe, another week or two, or perhaps it just pushes out this week, but you can see that certainly looks very constructive. Had a huge run from those tariff lows, and whenever you get something run like that, you certainly want to keep an eye on it. And just given how tight it has been, given that huge move, and it's barely corrected, and it's held all those moving averages and just getting tighter and tighter. So it's another kind of VCP setup, and once again, really exciting. So there you've kind of got a few themes in play. AI, energy, robotics, and as I said, we've got some really key ideas for subscribers this week in the email covering these themes. And I also wanted to touch on the other point, the other topic, which is defense, and some obviously that's not the greatest thing to be happening, but that's kind of the world cycle that we're in at the moment, and certainly defense. Spending is up, and the world's kind of a different place at the moment. So you can see this is once again in the US, but certainly there's 3 defense ETFs in Australia, and they've been amongst the best performers over the last 12 months. Just had absolutely stellar returns. And the thing is, they're setting up again. So once again, this is an example. This is ITA in the US, and you can see that run from those tariff lows. It's run up all that way, and then it's consolidated and looks like it wants to push out again. So very similar to that nuclear setup that I just showed, and you can kind of see there's an ETF in the US with aerospace and defense ETF, but we've also got NATO, which is an ETF listed in Europe but covers more so the European defense contractors and defense stocks. And you can see exactly this has actually started to move prior to, say, the tariff correction, which was here. It's just been trending up. Once again, huge move. It's set in here. It actually looked like it was going to it could have started to correct, and 3 days and it's back into highs. So once again, that defense theme's back in play. So something to keep in mind, and there's a couple ways to play that in Australia. Three different ways, but there's one in particular that we quite like. But and that's in the subscription email this week as a key idea. So you can kind of see the market. The bulls are very much in control at the moment. So as I said, the US market at highs. We've also had even Ethereum had a good finish to the week. So it shows it's certainly a risk-on environment. And actually, the good thing is it's not just happening in US tech. As I said, prior, we're seeing money flow into Asia. It's a lot of those Asian markets have moved through resistance. You've got AI as an ongoing theme, energy as an ongoing theme, and now you've got defense back in play as well. So certainly for the time being, everything looks quite constructive, and a very good time to be an ETF investor with a global view. Because if you look at the Aussie market, it actually is running out of steam here. And that makes sense. I mean, it's had, once again, a really big run from those lows, and driven initially a lot by tech and financials. But in this last half, we have started to see some rotation into resources. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And what's actually been interesting in the Aussie market is the small caps have been the big performers, and they're actually leading the market now, say, over that 12-month, in terms of 12-month return. So that's pretty exciting. But to me, that's looking very extended, and that's something we've been talking about for our subscribers. And you can kind of see it's up into that weekly resistance. So there's probably a few points there where there's certainly rotation around. There's a lot of different themes in play. And as I said, if you're an ETF investor and you've got your eye on the ball, you're going to be looking at these thematic and sector ETFs, which are really outperforming at the moment. And I think you're absolutely spoiled for choice. But if you just concentrated on the ASX 200, you can kind of see, it's at that point where it is consolidating after a very big run. So something to keep in mind. But that's what we're watching this week. As I said, all pretty exciting. Still expecting down the track, we're going to get that volatility late September. We're kind of entering that period now. So who knows where it'll come from, but often there's some news and all of a sudden, things can change quite quickly. So we're keeping that in mind, but for the time being, bulls are in charge, and the trend keeps going up. So as I said, exciting times for ETF investors.